Been president of this group for probably too long, but nobody else wants to do the emailing, so I'm able to do that much. I am not the history buff that some of our members are, so I'm more of the, okay, round up the cats, you know, what do they call it? Herding cats. You can herd the cats. Anyway, nice to have some new faces with us this evening. I haven't had a chance to be introduced to all of you. But what I may do is leave a clipboard with a piece of paper, and if you wish to leave an email address with us, that's our best way of kind of rolling you into our future programs and that type of thing. That's our easiest way to stay in touch. So we have other officers here tonight. We have Teresa Doyle, who's our secretary. Our treasurer and host is Pastor Herb Hatch, and we really like meeting here. So, and it works for us. And if you weren't here for dinner, you missed a really good potluck, but they're always good. And then Chris Reed has been president in the past. Let's see, my overlooking officers, not right now. But it takes a lot of us to keep the East Montpelier Historical Society and the Calais Historical Society going. Oh, and Andy Christensen is vice president, so, and our high-end tech coordinator, so. Oh, sure. Anyway, so this is our last program evening for 2024. We make it a point to meet usually at least March through November, including summer months. And sometimes if we need to, we squeeze in an extra program. Sometimes we find there's somebody in the area for a short period of time who would, give a great talk or a presentation. So we sometimes, pack two into the month of August or that type of thing. But anyway, I am going to use my notes because otherwise I'll forget something. So we currently have the slate of officers that I mentioned, but we need to be re-elected every year, unlike some people, and and we'll be formulating a slate of officers for 2025, and probably have an election either in March or April. That's also, when we start up again, is when you're invited to pay dues to the group. $5 just helps us pay for some of our expenses, like renting this hall and getting out publicity and that type of thing. I don't know, Pastor Herb, did you bring any numbers for tonight, like our financial numbers? Oh, he usually has this little slip of paper. All right, I'm going to pass this back to him. He can make the announcement, just so that you know how solvent we are.
Thank you. For the checking, is it on?
Yep, it is.
156.77. The savings is 3,011.42, and grant is 5,013.46.
Okay, so we try to stay honest and transparent. Thank you, Pastor.
Plus some that came in tonight.
Okay, and I will. So the grant is something that we got through the town of East Montpelier. We have always wanted to have some kind of sort of permanent display cabinet, and we're in the process of getting one designed and built, and it will go into the Four Corners Schoolhouse. And if you're here tonight and you don't know where the Four Corners Schoolhouse is, it's worth finding out. It's up near the East Montpelier Elementary School, and it was the East Montpelier Elementary School for that neighborhood for a good while. But we have Hobie. Where'd Hobie go? Hobie is on the board there. Chris Reed's on the board there. And they've done a lot to upgrade the condition of the Four Corners Schoolhouse. And we have used it a lot in the past, and now we're trying to get going on using it again. So we'll have this nice display cabinet built by Bill Royce of East Montpelier, into which we can lock some small artifacts, things come our way that we'd like to have available for display. And hopefully we'll have some more meetings there, or some celebration activities as well. So that's what the grant funding is. We also are on the verge of America's 250th anniversary, which will be in 2026. And the state of Vermont has an active organization pretty much based out of UVM that is trying to coordinate things across the state for smaller historical societies and other like-minded organizations to have celebrations. And that's the kind of thing we might do something at Four Corners Schoolhouse for sure. And any ideas of ways to celebrate or helpers, that I'll put out some appeals probably next year once we have a better idea of some things that we'd like to do. We do have our town history books, and they're on sale, not just for sale, but we're having a sale. And Teresa Doyle is right here, and if you are interested in getting either a paperback copy of Across the Onion or the hardback copy, the paperback's now at $20 and the hardcover is $25. And we have other publications, and Teresa has them nicely organized in a file box, and there's a listing of them around the piano bench. So if you're kind of wanting to see, well, what is out there about the history of this town, the book is great. It reads well, it's got really nice pictures and illustrations, and so you might consider.
The best. It's not just great.
Pardon me?
It's not just great, it's the best.
Jennifer says it's the best. However, because we also have Calais people here, Calais has their own history called Forever Calais, written by my father-in-law. So I cannot just, say that ours is the best, because Calais' is the best also. And if you're interested, Gail Graham is here, Reed Sherrington's here. You could talk to them about how to get a hold of a copy of their town history as well. Okay, so we'll be doing program planning for next year sometime in January. And it's not just a select few of us who make those decisions. We welcome ideas. If you see something that you're interested in, or have questions about a place or a building, or something that you heard a story about in your neighborhood, feel free to feed it to us, and we'll track down somebody who could maybe talk some more about it. We've been really lucky with tonight's presenter, because Nathan's kind of now the keeper of North Montpelier history, and he'll be taking us down that path very soon. The other thing that we have underway is that we want to connect more with the East Montpelier Elementary School, and I have spoken with their principal about doing something in February. They have a day that they call I Love East Montpelier around Valentine's Day, and the kids do various projects, and I have made an offer of one or more of our history books as a prize for some kind of projects the kids might do. Even though it's not really elementary school level reading, I've been in that school. I've given talks from our historical society about James Franklin Gilman, and Gilman's work is covered nicely in the book as well. He's an artist. He was an itinerant artist, and he made these paintings of beautiful buildings in East Montpelier and Calais and Barry, and that story really, and it's an easy story to share with children as well as adults. So that's the kind of connection we're trying to keep going. And if we have something going for February, it might be having people from our group come in and tell a story about something that you know about the history of our town. just to a classroom or maybe in the library to smaller groups of kids. So again, watch for that. Again, it would be in conjunction with around Valentine's Day. You'll hear more about that once we've got it organized. Let's see. Oh, and then I have a little shameless commerce. I also wear a hat at the Unitarian Church in Montpelier, and we have a beautiful quilt that's being raffled by December 7th, and there's a photo of it on the back table. And I happen to have tickets for the quilt raffle. They're $2 a piece, or you can get a book of 6 for $10. And I don't mind shamelessly advertising it. So if you're interested in that, see me later. The tickets will be available at the holiday fair that church is going to be giving on December 6th and 7th. So I just have to kind of spread the good word. It's a beautiful, mostly flannel type top quilt, and it's easily a queen size quilt, so full or queen size work. So if you don't mind me kind of stepping out of this role and into that one. Anything else from Calais that we need to say? Nothing in particular, okay. The dam at Curtis Pond is getting done. And so Calais has amazing initiatives going on in their town, fixing up the general store, fixing up the GAR Hall on number 10 Pond, which is stunning. Again, if you haven't ever ventured out that road, it's well worth going to see. And the hall is open some during the summer.
Yeah, we weren't able to have, fall foliage. We weren't able to have fall foliage this year for various reasons, but it's good when we do,
Yeah, and we'll also, sometimes next year, be meeting at what's called the Calais Town Hall. They have this beautiful old building down in Gospel Hollow, and it's near their town clerk's office, but it isn't their town clerk's office. And they have done amazing restoration to that hall, and they have a wonderful meeting space for both a meal and a talk.
And it's accessible, right?
Yes, yeah, but usually we use the downstairs, the ground level, but they've even put in an elevator there, so. Anyway, so there's lots of wonderful things going on in both towns, and we welcome you all for coming this evening, and we hope to see you again. So without, question or comment?
Wait, it's just that we're having a Friendsgiving in
Okay, here you go.
historic Plainfield, the Haybarn Theater, which is located on the Goddard campus. We're trying to provide that Friendsgiving. All of you are invited next Saturday from 5 to 9. We'll have music and lots of food, so please join us. And just to remind everyone, Goddard is actually in East Montpelier, Plainfield, and Marshfield. It's a tri-town campus, so please come to that.
Yeah, I think we're all getting ready for those good turkey meals or Thanksgiving meals. Anything else that people need to bring attention to at this time? And if not, I'm going to hand this over to Andy Christensen to do the introduction of our presenter tonight.
I didn't know that.
And if you need the volume up, let me know. But have you been doing okay sound-wise?
Yes.
All right, great, thank you.
I didn't know I was making an introduction tonight. I feel very inadequate doing this since Nathan's parents are right behind us. I think that my intuition is that they're more qualified than I am. So Nathan has been active on researching North Montpelier history for quite a while now. I know that I've seen him trudge up through the fields to our farm a few times and checking out places that he was researching. And since our farm is kind of on the border, I guess we're kind of in North Montpelier, right, Nathan?
Yep. Yep.
It's quite a privilege for us to have him here to share his research with us. So I think probably, is there anything else you want me to add to your bio?
No, that's good, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I'd just like to start with a couple of thoughts of why I love history so much, and why, things that I would encourage you to look for tonight. So I love all history, but especially I like historic photos, which is the focus of tonight. There's a couple of things about historic photos that really interest me. One is, and it's not absolute, there are the exceptions, but it's amazing how often an old photo falls in two categories. One is that there's nothing left of what you're looking at in an old photo. You would never know it was there other than an old photo or old, historic research. And you'll see a lot of those tonight, of things that you drive by all the time, you probably have no idea what was there. And then the other ones, which are also to me very intriguing, are the ones where, yes, however long photography's been around, somewhere 100 years, 150 years plus or minus, and you drive by that today, and it looks exactly the same. There's nothing has changed. And like I said, there are ones in between, but those things just really, really interest me.
Nathan, can you put the mic
Oh,
on?
yeah, that better? Okay, yeah.
It needs to be closer.
Okay. And the other thing that is kind of corollary to that, about history, that I think is very interesting and timely in a lot of our daily situations all throughout life, is challenging your assumptions. That's something that history does to me. I'll throw out one that really isn't here, but is my personal experience. I live on Factory Street, just out of North Montpelier. For anyone who doesn't know, the factory in Factory Street does mean something. That was where there was a woolen mill there. And I have lived on that road for about 25 years now, and there's never been a woolen mill, right? So you think, this road doesn't have a woolen mill on it. That woolen mill existed for 140 years. It's now been gone for about 50, 25, but you drive up that road and you have this assumption, what Factory Street is about, this is, I know the houses and everything on there. And for the majority of the time that Europeans have lived here, there was a woolen mill there. So, and that just, you'll see some others that'll definitely point out of, just remember that your experience and what you believe to be true isn't everyone's experience or history's experience. Just a couple of thoughts of why I love history. So I love history so much that anyone who knows me knows that I could go on for hours about North Montpelier. So I had to try to narrow my focus. So I picked the real early history of North Montpelier. That's what I'm going to focus on. Is I think anybody who's familiar at all with North Montpelier does know about the woolen mill. So that was built in about 1840. I'm pretty much going to mostly end about 1840. I'm going for that real early history.
Are we ready for lights?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what happens. Is that good for you, everybody? Okay. Yeah, and Nathan, again, if you angle the mic a little bit towards your mouth.
Okay. Like that.
Yeah.
Keep the cameras.
All right. Yeah. I'm definitely not used to that. The history of North Montpelier starts with Montpelier. Because up until 1848, East Montpelier was a part of the town of Montpelier. So our history is the actual early history of the town of Montpelier. That early history of Montpelier starts with Jacob Davis. He was basically accepted as being the first permanent settler of the town of Montpelier. He came and he settled, I believe it was on what is now Elm Street in what was called Montpelier Village at the time. He had 3 nephews who were orphaned when they were very young and actually grew up with another uncle, Ebenezer, in Charlton, Mass. And they ended up, these three brothers, all coming up helping Jacob Davis in his early settlement. Actually, one of them, Parley Davis, was a surveyor. They were helping him survey all of the local towns. All three of them ended up moving up here and settling in different parts of what was then Montpelier. So Parley Davis settled in what is now East Montpelier Center. He really became probably the most influential. He was involved, in a lot of the capital town things, and probably had the most influence. Then the younger brother was Hezekiah. He settled on East Hill. And our focus tonight, starting out, is on the other brother, which was Nathaniel Davis. So you can see here, this is the 1858 map of North Montpelier. I highlighted Colonel Davis. That is Hammett Hill. That was his choice. He was the first to settle anywhere in the North Montpelier area. And that was, he first came up in, I think it was 1790, yep. And then to help his uncle, he came up again, went back home, came up again in 1791 and moved permanently here in 1792. At the age of 19, on that third trip, he was 19. He surveyed the area, checked out where he wanted, decided that the water power that he thought he could harness at this site made it the most advantageous location. So he bought, I think it was about 200 acres here originally. And in 1792, by 1793, he had a 32 by 80 foot barn built. And again, showing the different priorities of the time. That was 1793 for the barn. The house was 1795, 2 years later. But he became a very influential person in this area, being obviously the first here. So a couple of quick things. He ran the first store in the area out of his house. And in the early years, that was the closest store. So people from Marshfield, Plainfield, Calais, other areas of what is now East Montpelier, all traded at that store, apparently. I know there wasn't a store in, say, East Calais Village until like the late 1820s, so almost 30 years later. So the other thing, so we'll go to a couple. So this is the current view of that location. This is Kane and Ken Trask house. It's 200 Hammett Hill. That is basically built on top of the old house. So this is the earliest view that I know of that house. This is about 1870, I believe. So this is taken from Hammett Hill. It was known to be the fanciest house in the area for many years. Apparently very ornate inside. They had fabrics from London, and there's a pretty interesting description of it in one of the history books. And it had granite pillars outside. I'm not sure if that's what you're seeing right in front of the house there. Those like 4 or 6 pillars, looks like. But it was known to be very, very ornate and only the best. And as the history books say, even the pig pens were immaculate. So I think I got a little out of order, but so this is right at the end of its life. This is 1929. All of the relatives had passed away, and it was basically in extreme disrepair and was dismantled. And this is September of 1929, and it was apparently taken down later that year.
The road looks pretty good.
So this was supposed to be the next one. This is the best available picture. Fortunately, doesn't show any of the outbuildings, but it's a very nice structure. And Andy, did you say your father remembered that a little bit?
did,
or?
yeah.
Yeah. So then we're gonna go to his one. Actually, I believe his first venture was mistakenly circled too, but the one more to the left or center. That is the first sawmill in the area of North Montpelier. And to get your bearings, that is not in the village. That is on the little, almost non-existent brook that is just north of Hammett Hill. The brook is still there, but he built a sawmill there. That was I think even before the house or barn, that was what he built. And the story is that he went up in the field up to the north and, quote, turned a stream to come down that way. As Andy said, walking, I live kind of on the other side of those woods, and I walk those a lot. And I have gone out and tried to figure out where he could have turned that stream. And the problem is that to the east of where that stream is a big ridge. So I really don't see anywhere that it could have gone before. But anyway, that's the story. So that, just again for anyone who may not be familiar with the area, that is basically, that trees is more or less where that sawmill was. I again have gone down in there and walked all up and down that stream bed. I cannot find any current sign that there was anything there. Kind of even more unbelievable to me is that anyone familiar with the area, again, this is the uphill side of 14 right there, where Seth Gardner pastures cattle, and that, again, for probably about 100 years, was a mill pond. A mill pond for the sawmill, for the water-powered sawmill. It was a big pond there. And that, again, was built in plus or minus 1793. And the record is that a storm in 1897 somehow destroyed it. It broke something out, broke the dam out or something, and it was never rebuilt. So just over 100 years, that was a mill pond.
So we're looking south, and Hammett Hill is ahead of us, and the mill would be to the left?
Yes.
And the mill
Yep.
pond to the right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. One interesting thing about that sawmill, I'll give a plug for one of our Historical Society brochures, the Reminiscences of North Montpelier by Aunt Ruth Butterfield. Is very, very interesting. She was a relative of Nathaniel Davis, and she has a number of stories in there about, so Nathaniel Davis built the original woolen mill down in the village. And I always assumed that the lumber for that came from the sawmill down in the village. Apparently not. According to Ruth Butterfield, the mill parts were built, sawn, and then, according to her, basically prefabricated here at, as she calls it, Uncle Nath's mill. And the water wheel, for one thing, was built completely in one piece and transported down the hill to be installed into the mill. That would have been interesting to see. So this is, for those again that don't know, this is Factory Street, looking at the site of that mill. And that is the original mill. That's, can't imagine, I think it was 300 feet long.
What year?
That was built between 1838 and 1840.
And where was that located now? I mean, if we go up there, right in the corner?
Yeah, right, yep. So you can just see 14 going out of sight to the right, and then you can just barely again see the little piece of 14
Okay.
on the extreme right bottom.
Will you go back one, Nathan, please? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was it sitting right here?
Yes, yep.
All right, so this
Yep.
is Route 14 going north,
Right in front of the dam then?
this is right in here.
Yeah, coming all the way to 14, basically.
Right to the
Wasn't there some across the other side too, with an overhead?
Yeah, that's the later mill.
Okay.
So this mill burned, and when it was rebuilt, so yeah, that's an interesting thing. I, again, was trying not to go too far into the mill, so I don't have a picture of the second one, but this mill was built, when it was really based on water power, all right? And the mills were built so that everything was done by gravity, right? That's why it's so tall, 5-story tall mill. Started, as raw wool up at the top and came all the way down through. When this burned, it was about 1909, 1910, the new mill was only 2 stories tall because it wasn't relying on the same water power. It was not relying on that gravity. So, and that, yes. Now, I will also tell you that very early in my North Montpelier history, I had a chance to buy a picture of basically this mill with a big, huge building on the other side of it that I've never seen before or since, and I didn't buy it. But there was no connection. That was the later lower mill.
The pond is underneath? Where's
The pond is basically behind.
Okay.
So the dam is probably like right behind the center,
right.
more or less. You will see a little bit better maybe in, so I also did play some with trying to get the pictures because, they're not the highest quality, obviously from that era, but, so you probably can't see much of anything better in that one, but.
So could you talk a little bit about the product? You say the raw wool at the top.
Yeah,
What was
so,
the actual product?
so it started out, we'll get further on, but the very first start here was what was basically called a carding mill, which was just taking the wool and kind of straightening out the fibers. And it was Nathaniel Davis who decided that that equipment was getting very old and kind of out of date, and he built this new mill. And the intent was to go from raw wool all the way to finished product. So they were actually sending finished, at this point, I don't think they were actually making clothes, but finished cloth that they were sending down to Boston. So everything, yeah. The later mill did actually get into, for a long time, they were actually making clothes there from raw wool. Right, so you could go and buy a jacket like you can at Johnson Woolen.
I think a lot of
Blankets, yes.
from,
Yeah, So one thing this mill did from basically the day it opened to the day it closed, struggled to maintain right on the edge of actually being able to make money. It was chronically just not a financial success. When they built it, basically they got done, and that was right. You guys probably very familiar with Vermont being 80% open and 20%, and now we're back to 20%, 80%. And that was because of the sheep craze that basically deforested Vermont. These guys had the exact wrong timing. They being basically Nathaniel Davis and his son Nathaniel, jumped into the woolen market at the exact time that the bottom fell out of it. So as soon as they actually, I believe they only ended up owning it for about 6 or 7 years. And then it went through a long succession of owners. And then a man named George Foster Sibley, Sibley, a common name here, Sibley Road. He actually bought it, I believe, with money that he had made farming. So he had some money to actually spare. And in about the 1870s, he totally redid the mill. Again, upgraded it, because by 30 years, technologies had progressed, and it was pretty outdated. He actually is really the one person in 140 years that actually really had success with this mill. And he had quite a bit of success, and unfortunately passed away very young. And then again, it passed away young and got sold. This was a picture that I unearthed at the Vermont Historical Society that I had never seen before. I had seen the previous one, but this one, the very fancy turret there on the top was compared to a church. But you can see the size of that building. Obviously, I believe the main body, the original mill, and then add-ons. As I know they added, as it went on, they did add more and more to the process. Don't think I ended up putting any pictures in here, but there were a number of other buildings added when they decided to do more than just preparing the cloth. Like I said, one of the ones that I've heard a lot of stories about, was when they got into actually coloring the cloth. The dyes and everything were incredibly caustic and bad for the environment. And that is actually what was done on the other side of the road. You had asked about that other side of the road was basically where the more processes beyond making the cloth, the actual more towards finished product. That was all on the other side of the road.
Nathan, do you have a sense of the population of workers and maybe how far or near the mill they might have lived?
Well, yeah. Again, it varied as they did more and more. The populations went up. What I've seen for this area, this era, is basically probably in the 25 to 30 range is what I've seen. And again, I didn't get into it in this, but definitely plenty of material for another time. So one of the things was a boarding house.
Right.
So from fairly early on, there was a boarding house. The original boarding house was right actually on 14. It was at the corner. So the other side, basically opposite the mill. So on the corner of 14 and Factory Street, on the other side of Factory Street. And then that actually got moved from that location to basically to the left of the mill here.
Down where Susan lives, down in that area?
No, on Factory Street.
Oh, it's on
On, yeah,
Factory Street.
further up Factory
Oh,
Street
okay.
away from 14.
Oh.
Like I say, don't have any pictures of it, but it would be it's amazing. Again, I live there, so I go by it every day. How they fit it in between the existing buildings. The existing buildings aren't that far away, and I can show you pictures where there's like 8 more buildings than what are there now. And you're like, how did it all fit? But it did.
I can tell you how close they were. Unfortunately, we were asked to burn the boarding house. It was 50 rooms.
Even in your lifetime?
81.
Absolutely. And I didn't sleep well that night. I was fire chief.
Yes. Wow.
I had 7 fire departments and, 50 rooms.
Yeah,
Do you know what year that was, more or less?
1980.
Oh,
It was
really?
right around 1980, and then the
Absolutely.
mill was taken down in 81.
Wow, I was
So yeah, they were both there.
Bobby Parker and I lit it toward the pond so that it would fall toward the pond.
Wow.
And somebody lived in one of those little houses all the time, 18 feet from it. We put steel roofing up against their house, and they never moved away.
I got to document some of those memories. I did not know those details.
Do you suppose that is an exterior elevator between the floors?
I think it very well could have been, yes, because again, all that material, all the raw material had to go up to the top floor, so
So counterweighted?
I honestly had not thought of that, but I think you're 100% right.
Nathan, I also heard a story, and I don't know where I read it, that there was a connector between the old mill and that new mill that was on the downstream side of the 14. That there was an overhead.
Yeah.
On the
connector-
old mill or the
No, connecting
new?
between the two
Yep,
over
yeah,
the
there was.
highway, and
Yep.
that there was either an elephant or a giraffe or something
Yep.
that got stuck, or
Well, it didn't get stuck; it knocked it off.
it knocked
The
it off.
truck.
Okay, so you know
The
that story.
circus
Yeah,
carnival truck,
Oh,
yes.
that's right, you told me.
Destroyed it.
Yeah.
The interesting parallel to that too is right before that, the state was not happy about that, all right? And they needed a way for trucks, they wanted trucks to be able to go through. So there was a whole bunch of intense negotiation. They wanted to take it down. The state wanted it taken down. They refused. What ended up happening, that was when the state took over Route 214. All right, that had been a local road. The state took it over, it needed to be paved. They went back and forth. Finally, the state decided to take it over and pave it. And it was somewhere within a week to a month later that got knocked out, and they didn't, they wouldn't have had to do it, but they had already agreed to do it, so.
King Reed was a legislator,
Oh.
and it was one of his trucks. It came down the hill too high and took it right down.
I knew it was King Reed, I didn't know he was a legislator.
No circus?
No circus.
It was King Reed Circus.
Oh.
King Reed Circus.
King Reed Carnival.
Yeah, our carnival, yeah.
I've heard the story that some young men from North Montpelier filled the far end of the piece that goes over the road with cardboard boxes so that anybody coming down into North Montpelier would hit those cardboard boxes. This was a Halloween prank.
So it's just the 1858 map of North Montpelier. This is the 1873 map, and so now I wanted to get into Samuel Rich. He was the second person in the North Montpelier area, and he came up, basically did the same thing, came up, stayed in Montpelier, which is where people stayed, surveyed the area, and he decided on what we now know as North Montpelier, again, because of water power. So that's, that's an interesting, again, another interesting thing to me of, in this time of, we all know about floods, and why are all of our towns along the water? And it's solely because that was the available power. We didn't have gasoline, we didn't have electricity, we had water power. And we needed lumber and grains, and so grist mills, sawmills, those were the most important thing settling a town. So he decided that he could dam the Kingsbury, and that's what he did. So he created the dam, created the pond, and in very short order, he had created a sawmill and grist mill there. And so the interesting thing to me, I never, again, didn't realize at first is, so the dam that we see now, that is the dam that was pretty much always for the woolen mill. The grist mill and the sawmill were actually powered by a second dam. You can, if you go or look down, I'm sure you can see it actually if you're on the road, but if you are on the bridge or go down around, you can basically see where the second dam was. It's pretty much right under Route 14. But there were two different dams that were actually, for most of the time, owned by two different people that powered the different mills. And the main mill was typically always for, I don't know really about the early history, but the sawmill and the grist mill were also on the south side of the Kingsbury, all right? So on the same side that the sawmill was of the river, but on the other side of Route 14, down below where, again, people familiar with the area, that's where the powerhouse still is, that originally ran the mill. So this is the earliest picture that I'm aware of the Samuel Rich estate. And I was
Tavern.
yes.
That's your house?
Yeah, Selena Moore's house.
And he was
Yes.
very smart about the flooding. He got up nice and high, so we never had a flood up there.
Yeah, so this I would say probably took the mantle from Nathaniel Rich's as being the nicest house in the area. It was pretty convincingly built, intended to be a tavern as well as a home. It was always basically a tavern from the start, and based on the construction, probably always intended that way. With Selena can, I'm sure, tell you a lot more of the features than I can, but I do know, like, upstairs it has a ballroom that had openable partitions, so you could make a big wide open room. Has a fiddler's bench, that was where the traveling musicians would play. It's got a bar room downstairs. What else do you think of, Selena? I know I've got a couple pictures too.
The ladies' parlor.
Yeah, I do. I have a picture of
On the other
that.
side of it. She's like, the bar room's on this side of the front door, and the ladies' parlor is on the other side.
You can see the two big barns on the right-hand side there. And he ended up, I think there's about 700 acres that he owned. And as I said, developed. One thing that also amazes me about the early history is how industrious some of these early settlers were. I'm sure I won't give you a exhaustive list, but within the first 10 years, he had developed a sawmill, a grist mill, a distillery, a cider mill, a brickyard. What else can you think of, Selena? Do you remember anything else?
Those are the ones I remember.
Those bricks made this building.
Did they?
From
Yep.
there.
Yep. The bricks from there apparently made this church. I know they made Selena's basement.
Yeah,
in any of
our
the,
whole, yeah, all the way around the bottom of the house and
yeah,
bricks.
yeah.
We pulled bricks out of the pond every once in a while.
Oh, yeah?
And the pond used to be lower.
Hey Nathan, I thought, maybe Mr. Kelton of Kelton Road was a brick maker also, is that?
He was a brick mason. I do not believe he was a maker.
Okay.
He was definitely a very well-known, very highly regarded builder of bricks, you know, someone who built houses with bricks. I do not believe he made them.
Gotcha. Thanks.
But yes,
I
he
was
is well
told
known
that
for.
bricks were made actually over, at one of the stores, either the, Calais store or, no, Calais is up there. Maple Corner, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Up in that
Okay.
area, that's where they had the clay.
I know the history says that he had a brickyard in North Montpelier.
Oh, okay.
And I've never known where it was, but
Someone corrected me, he was at, Bill, one of the older fellows that I met, who knew a lot about the house, but.
that's what he said. I
Yeah.
mean, it could very, history can be wrong.
I don't know.
Remember there was a distillery on this side of the road, but I can't find any remnants of it.
Okay, yeah, I never knew where it was. And what Across the Onion says is that it was down the hill towards the village. That's all I've ever known about where it was.
What was he making, rum?
Whiskey.
Potato whiskey.
Whiskey?
Yep, whiskey. That was the common thing. So, yeah, there were numerous taverns. This was on the stagecoach route. So there was a tavern on Snow Hill Road, and most of them had distilleries, so they could provide their own spirits.
Rumor has it that his father, Samuel Rich, the first one from Massachusetts, made his money as a distiller.
Oh, really? Okay, I had not heard that.
What did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Nathan, would you repeat
Yeah,
the questions,
yeah.
because we can't.
Okay, yeah. Just that Samuel Rich, who developed here, that his father had made his money as a distiller in Massachusetts.
Oh, I see.
And as a master builder, there were 3 Samuel Riches.
Yeah, that was Samuel. This Samuel Rich was a builder. That was his. He actually probably likely, remember that 32 by 80 barn that I said that Nathaniel Davis, it was most likely built by Samuel Rich because he was a builder. The interesting thing though is that Samuel Rich the builder did not build Samuel Rich's house. And that was a gentleman named Isaac Wells, pretty well known. I don't know if we have anybody here besides my parents from the Marshfield Plainfield area, but I grew up in Marshfield, just out of Plainfield. And my best friend was a boy named Paul Wells, and his father is Ronnie Wells, if anybody knows him. He is currently living in Plainfield. He is a builder, and he is a whatever era it is, great grandson of Isaac Wells.
Wow.
So we're 219 years later, and his relatives are still in the area building.
Another really fascinating thing to me is that the trees at the time that they were building were these mammoth pines, and our house from the ground all the way up to the roof have boards. It's called a plank house or something like that.
Yeah, plank house, yeah.
Really wide, giant, all up and down. That's just beautiful.
No, the plank boards.
Yeah.
Nathan?
Yeah.
Would Dwayne Wells be one of the Wells family in Plainfield?
Dwayne Wells. See, I don't know if he's the same family. I don't know that. I do know what's that, Ronnie, and then his father was Mervyn Wells, who was on Route 2 going to Plainfield.
I'll
He was
find
a
out,
plumbing.
Dwayne was a contractor as well.
Yeah, I know
I'll
Dwayne,
find
but
out.
I don't know if he's related.
Isn't there a house in the village also called the Rich House?
It's the red building.
Oh, that's got a fascinating story about a brother who was trying to, marry a woman, or no, two women interested in the same guy. I can't remember what, but they were fighting over the house,
Yeah, I guess
making
I'm
the
not
house bigger and fancier. As
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Great story.
The Sibley Mansion, and then the
Yes,
house
that's
across
it, yeah.
the road. I'm not sure which red house you're talking about in the
A
village. There's
giant
a
red
couple.
one down below.
Yeah, I know, but is that the one you're talking about? The one that was David Rogers?
That's right.
Or the one that was the Riverbend?
That's Jackie's house?
Now, as you're, going up from Factory Street, it's on the left-hand side. It's a big old house.
Oh,
That's,
that's the one we mean, yeah.
The Victorian house.
Yeah, I've never heard that as being named the Rich House, but that doesn't mean anything. The other Riches that were around, so Samuel's brother, Stephen Rich, actually was, again, I grew up on Hollister Hill. He was up on Hollister Hill and married Hollisters. So the Stephen Rich and his house still exists. I grew up going by that all the time. That's the other Riches, original Riches anyway.
It's actually in Marshfield, just Marshfield. outside
Yeah.
Plainfield. Right. Yeah.
It was Arnold Tibbetts' house, if anybody knows. It's right at the turn going up Hollister Hill, if you're up there. So this was in 1881, long after Riches were gone. This was actually a Kelton, George Kelton. His wife had inherited it. She actually was a Rich. And in 1881, they fully renovated it. I think it had kind of started to decay, and they did a full renovation, which preserved it fairly well up until about 1965, 66, I think.
When we moved in, yeah.
Well, when did Illingsworth do the?
Oh,
it was-
Illingsworth was the one, yes, I was
Yeah.
thinking of Laurie, and he was the one that fixed it, yeah.
Yeah, and about 1965 or 66, Reverend Illingsworth had bought it, and it was in really tough shape then, and he undertook a massive multi-year restoration.
I guess there were like six paper on the wall, and he, with his fingernails, literally pulled them off and found the stencils all painted up on the edge, on the plaster. It was just amazing. Then he had the
yeah,
stencils redone.
the interior had been redone so many times, like they had put new plaster up over the old, and then eventually they had put drywall and everything, and different layers of wallpaper, yeah, and he was able to actually pull all that back and expose the 1805 stenciling on the wall.
A lot of stenciling.
Yeah, so he really brought it back to its original glory. So this is something that it's known for. Selena's house here, North Montpelier, and then Harley Davis's over in the center, both have this Palladian window. I am not aware of any other one, at least in Washington County. So that to me is pretty fancy for today. Imagine 1805.
And that's a ballroom all across, on either side is a ballroom. So cool.
This is also in the right circles, well-known feature. If you can tell in that picture, that is the main front door, and that is divided horizontally. You see that line there, basically at waist height. That's basically something borrowed from barns, so that you can open the top half and keep the bottom half closed. And you could either to keep critters out or maybe keep young ones in. I'm not sure which one it was in this case. Maybe both.
Certainly not to keep the heat out.
But again, that is not, I'm not sure I know of another
Full of everything.
original house that has that detail.
Boy, it looks much tidier than it does now.
So this is the much lauded ladies' parlor, and again, pretty well known for the painting there above the fireplace. That is from 1805, and did he end up having that restored some?
He must have, because it looks great.
Yeah. I think he did end up, I think there was some damage to it that he had restored. but-
Anybody can come up and see this, you don't have to look at the movie.
That's where the piano is, right?
What's that?
That's where the piano is.
Yes, we're sort of sitting where the piano is, right?
So those are the first two settlers. The other early settlers would mostly be names that you know. McKnight, on McKnight Farm, on Snow Hill Road. Enoch Kate Farm. And they were, McKnight was 1793, as well as Enoch Kate. Then Barnabas Hammett Hill, 1794. John Gray, Gray Road, which goes off Factory Street into Calais, was also 1794. Arthur Daggett Road, 1797. So those were the real first settlers. One thing also getting into, I just wanted to touch on at this early stage was roads. So this is something, it's very hard to read, even if it's not projected. This is, again, something over at the Historical Society that is a map that Harley Davis had drawn in a letter that he sent to someone in like 1820 or something like that. That the Historical Society, Vermont Historical Society, has pulled out and has available. So I did try to draw in some of the main things to give you some idea what you're looking at. So the dark yellow is the rivers. So the more vertical is the Kingsbury Bridge. And the kind of squiggly that's a little more east-west is the main branch of the Winooski. So if you kind of start off at the bottom left of that yellow line, you can see a blue line that goes pretty much straight up. So that is Route 2, kind of in the village at the lower part, in East Montpelier Village. And then where it kind of starts to stray off from the yellow line, where the yellow line turns to the right, that is Kelton Road, for our Kelton Road fans here. And you see that go up, and it goes up to Snow Hill Road, which is kind of the main, again, one that's more going east-west. And then it joins, maybe if you want to, Charlie, that would be a great idea.
All right, Nathan, you're saying this is the river here, that's the main Winooski?
Yep,
That's the Kingsbury?
yep,
And so the confluence is right at Cape Farm, is that right?
yep, that's right.
Okay, and then you're saying Kelton Road is this blue line?
Well, that right in there, that's more or less what Route 2 is now, kind of at the village. So keep going. Right about there is the start of Kelton Road,
Okay.
all right, because it just keeps going straight.
Oh,
You
yeah,
go
that's-
up.
That's Sodom Pond Brook there.
That's right, yep. So you go up, and you come up, so now you're at Snow Hill.
Okay, Seth's place is gonna be.
Yep, Seth's place right there.
Right,
And so Snow Hill continues towards North Montpelier, all right? And that is Guyette Road and then Factory Street. Now, one of the main things, a couple things I wanted to show here. Stay up there for a second if you would. I need your finger. If you would go about to the middle of what we're calling Kelton Road, up a little further, right a little further. See that right there? It's again kind of hard to see, but going off to the right is a road that I didn't dash in. I did not know about that road's existence. So that is right where, just north of where Sodom Pond crosses. There is what I believe is a driveway, but that is very clearly showing that there used to be a road there. And that road, all right, so back up for a minute. One thing you won't see here is a road that goes from from East Montpelier Village to North Montpelier Village. That section of 14 past the village was not built until 1848. Right? So you could not just go between those villages for a long time. I always assumed that you had to go through Snow Hill and down Kelton, but I just found this a few days ago, and that appears to show that there was some crossroad from there on Kelton that basically took you more or less to the Cape Farm. So I just discovered that.
Yeah.
Farm would be right here.
Yeah,
And so-
and one thing you do have to remember, this was drawn after the fact. It was drawn in a letter. So one thing you see is from where Seth's farm is on Snow Hill. You can see basically there's a dashed line that goes off to the right but goes down. That really is Hammett Hill. All right, it's gotta be. I mean, it's the only thing that's in that area. Hammett Hill really would go basically directly straight to the right. So something's off there. He's got that coming in more to, again, more like in the, going directly to Cape Farm. But anyway, I still think that other road that I'm looking at, that's nothing anybody else has ever been aware of.
That's not Daggett Road. And Daggett Road went beyond Dave Coburn's house.
It
went
went down to
through.
Coburn Road.
Well, that piece isn't, because that's definitely coming from Kelton. But so there is a whole question to me of when they say that 14 wasn't built until 1848. I believe that probably means from Daggett Road down to the village. Because we know Daggett Road existed in 1850 when the house was built. So there is some question there, which I was just trying to make that look a little bit better. So this is the earliest real map that we have. And this does have, you can see Daggett is way down at the very bottom going off. That was kind of where I clipped it. And you can see Hammett Hill coming in, you can see Coburn Road. Basically all of those roads are there. There are two things the main thing I wanted to point out here is what I've highlighted there in yellow is, again, to go from North Montpelier to Marshfield or Plainfield, there was no route to 14. That was 1871. Prior to that, how you went to Marshfield or Plainfield was you went out the start of Butterfield Road to there was an old road there, old roadbed that I've walked, that hooks on to the backside of Hollister Hill, which is which is,
It comes out right at that, Maple, series.
yeah, right at Bill Smith's,
Yep.
yeah. Taylor Farm Road. And you can see that Taylor Farm, where see I circled C Taylor. So that you would go out to that intersection at Bill Smith's, and if you wanted to go to Plainfield, you could either go down Hollister Hill or go down Taylor Farm, which basically is exactly how it is now. You come down Taylor Farm to 214, and the only difference is there was no right. It really did basically come to a 90-degree turn, but your only option was to go towards Plainfield.
So essentially no Route 2.
No, 214,
Or
yeah.
north of there,
From that point to North Montpelier.
Wasn't it really Route 12 back
No.
That, I have no idea.
then? No, I mean north-south.
It used to be.
14 14 was 12.
Was it?
Yes.
Really? When did that change?
I think in the 30s when they,
Really?
20s
Oh,
and
I
30s.
didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when they built the retaining wall.
So this is the 1873 map. Again, just wanted to point out a couple roads. You do see basically that heavy yellow line to the right. That is now 214, which has just been built a couple of years before. The other interesting thing that I have a hard time believing maybe wasn't just artistic license, but you see that box of basically the bottom of Factory Street and 214 being the right and bottom sides. Boy, that sure seems to show a square, doesn't it? Like that you could drive around by the boarding house and the church. Never seen anything other than that image portraying that, but that intrigues me.
Maybe it was an aspirational map.
Could be.
It's kind of swampy there.
It's very swampy.
It's very sloppy.
It's very
Yeah.
sloppy.
And I will point out here that this does show the original location of the boarding house. You can see in that square. So that is kind of sort of where Jackie Harmon's house is, i.e. Sibley Mansion. And that was moved from that location to a location that is basically out of sight further up Factory Street. So I assume that it went down 214 and turned and.
Yeah, and I don't know the history of the Universalist church there, although I really would like to learn it. But I believe that some of the, when that was taken down or whatever,
Yeah.
that a number of the hymnals came here to this
And
church.
the stained glass windows.
Yes.
3 of
and-
them.
And, and we ended up with some of the hymnals, taking them to the Unitarian Church Montpelier. So, you know, the history's kind of being shared
Yeah, that
between
was
churches as well.
was built in 1867, dismantled in 1856.
That piano or organ kind of thing on the left was from that.
The
I would have to go out
organ,
and see.
the organ in the sanctuary.
Not the,
Oh.
not the real one, the other one,
Okay.
over on the left. It's not called an organ either.
Okay.
that
And
one.
that church was on Factory Street?
No, it was on 14.
It was on
On 14. Yeah.
And wasn't it unstable because of the swamp?
Yes. Yeah. The foundation. The foundation was too expensive to fix. And the other thing, the bell from that church is what is in the bell tower over at the center meeting house.
Oh, right.
That a quick little story that was sold to the church in the East Montpelier Center for $50, and they brought the bell over there, and the clapper was not in it. So they only paid him $25 and told him they'd get the other $25 when they got the clapper. So that was, like I said, 1956. The church, the bell sat in the narthex over at the meeting house for a number of years. Then that shelter was built. Time went on. Sometime around, I think, 2011, I was a trustee on the, for the old meeting house. And a clapper appeared. 55 years later. So I got the honor of trying to install the clapper in our bell. So I took the old clapper out, which you could see 2 marks inside the bell. There was an upper mark and a lower mark because of the 2 different clappers where they had hit. So I took the old clapper out and I put the quote new, i.e. the old, the original, in there, and it hit exactly in the old location. And it is believed that clapper had spent the 55 years in a barn on Dodge Road, and a new owner had no idea that they owned it. It was in the barn, and they discovered it at some point and wondered why they had a clapper, and said it to the right person who knew the story. So.
That's so cool.
Yes, I'm not sure if $25 ever changed hands. I should get on that. Yeah. All right, so now we're going to jump to schools. Another obviously very important thing in the early history. So the first records we have of a North Montpelier school are from 1801. Now remember, 1792 was the very first guy there. The first house was 1795. 1801, there were 45 kids. 1802, there were 54 kids. And what we know about the first school was that it was at this location, which is the intersection of Route 14 and Coburn Road. Don't know exactly where, which side of the road, but it was on, which side of Coburn Road. It was here on the east side of 14. And again, when I said start, your preconceived notions and things, that don't exist anymore. This also, by the way, was a brick schoolhouse. I assume, again, made with bricks from the brickyard, but that was the first school.
This is where Orchard Valley is now?
Yes, yep.
There's no trace?
No trace, no trace. I mean, that, you can see it's kind of been pretty well probably disturbed there with parking lots and the house. The one that is on my list of things to do, because I have not actually done it yet, is, so that schoolhouse in 1813 apparently was moved. Because, they moved things back then, a brick schoolhouse.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So here is the 1858 map. Again, you're looking at the corner there that highlight the school. That is the corner of Hammett Hill and 14. So not moved very far, but that is the location in 1813 of a brick school. Who would ever drive by that and know that? That's the history that I love. I don't know at what point the school actually did move to the village. I don't have any idea how old that existing school building is. I also, just for Calais people, have the exact same thing just a little further up the road. This again is the 1858 map. Now that highlight that you're seeing there, you can see North Montpelier, so that is the intersection of 14 with Lightning Ridge and Max Gray.
Yeah.
And again, right on, just a little ways back from the intersection on 14, that was the original Calais school in that area. And
Yes.
that is, again, what you're looking at. No,
It
yeah,
was moved,
of course it was.
it was moved towards North Montpelier. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of it, I can't think right now.
Carnes?
Yeah, I know,
Oh, was that Carnes?
I remember, when it was still there, I'm so,
Really?
yeah.
I did not know that. I thought it had been gone forever. So in your memory, it was there. Huh.
Vaguely remember.
Yeah.
It being there, but, as I say, I think it was moved down 14 going towards, North Montpelier.
So is it a house now?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Sort of outside the pond. It was moved, it's
Oh.
down. yeah.
Oh, down by the
Sort of
pond?
down toward the edge of the pond.
Oh.
I think it's a house or a camp.
I need to talk to you people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting to know. So from schools, we're gonna go to stores. So I mentioned that Nathaniel Davis, the first store was in his house. But fairly, that was 1795, fairly shortly after the first actual store building was built. And again, as you can see, it's kind of on the corner of Factory Street and 14, what we would consider the swamp. But that store was sold to, built by a gentleman, sold to Nathaniel Davis. And very interestingly, over the next about 60 years, you would go crazy trying to follow the ownership of that building and the store business. But I will tell you that it went from Nathaniel Davis to Samuel Rich, back to Nathaniel Davis, and then from Nathaniel Davis to Samuel Rich's son, Jacob Davis, and then Jonathan Davis, and then from him back to Nathaniel Davis's son, Nathaniel. So when we, historians talk about Nathaniel Davis and Samuel Rich being, the big players in North Montpelier, they really were, they sold stuff back and forth. One thing I didn't mention, Nathaniel Davis, I don't know whether his fortunes changed in North Montpelier. Maybe Samuel Rich was too influential, but the other thing he did was after doing a lot of early stuff in North Montpelier, he went up to East Calais and basically did all of the same things and more. He established the first mills and I believe dammed the river in East Calais as well.
Who was that?
Nathaniel Davis.
Oh, okay.
An interesting thing I mentioned to someone here earlier today, one thing that he did in East Calais, still have kind of a hard time believing it, is he established a nail factory. And the history records say he was mining some sort of ore in East Calais that he was, iron, that he was able to smelt and make nails out of. And I have never heard of that in central Vermont.
If you go
I
on.
thought that was a southern Vermont thing.
Excuse me, if you go on Dump Road from East Calais, you go around a bend beyond where they used to collect the garbage. You look way up high and you'll see the rocks are a different color. And that's where they got the ore. And if you go where you shouldn't go, just beyond where they used to collect the garbage, and down over the bank, you will see some stonework, and that was a smelter. where they turn the ore into the iron to make the nails.
Wow.
But you aren't supposed to go there, the sign says keep out.
Well, that is very good information to know.
Like
Thank you.
again, huh?
Nobody bother you, there's never anyone there.
Same side of the road as the garbage dump?
Yeah, it is down over a steep bank.
I'll go with you.
Yeah, don't go long. Good walking sticks.
And again, by this time, the mill had passed from the Davises through a number of people to the Littles. They were fairly successful at it, and they actually had 2 stints as well. Walter Little owned it, was fairly successful. He had run a number of mills in other areas, including Northfield and Barry, so he was pretty experienced. And right in the middle of kind of getting things in shape, he passed away. And at that point is when George Foster Sibley of Sibley Road, of Sibley Farm, descendant, bought the mill, totally renovated it, installed all the machinery, was the most successful built, what is known as the Sibley Mansion, i.e. the kind of old house on the corner of 14 and Factory Street. That was, again, a real showpiece in its time. The trim in every room was done in a different hardwood. It was one of its distinguishing features. And you can see again, Sibley's had the store, can't remember exactly which Sibley that is, C. Sibley, but George Foster Sibley, after renovating the mill, getting it running good, building that beautiful house, also passed away very young. And the mill went to Walter Little's 3 children. So it went back to the Littles.
Do you have any information on the boot factory?
I do have some, I didn't include it in this, but I could get you some. Yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head. So again, just looking for those that may not know, that corner, we were talking about the store, and then there was the boarding house is in this corner that is very wet, and hard to believe that there were a bunch of buildings there at some point.
Where is this?
So you're looking back up 14, going towards East Montpelier.
Okay.
So that's Factory Street,
Oh, that's
so the
Factory.
dam is kind of right behind you.
You can't see the big house, so it's.
Yeah, you can't see the
Yeah,
big
so-
house, yeah. But you would be looking at Sibley Mansion. So this is what I would call the 3rd store, after the store in his house, and then the one on the corner. This has been known by many names. We'll use our current company, Laura Brown, who was one of the last to operate this as the country store, right? But was originally built in, I believe it was 1839, to compete with the other store. For, as it is in here, for I think over 40 years, it was operated by William Nye and known as the Nye Store. There's been quite a number of people who actually ran it for fairly long periods. And I know one thing they said was that when the creamery was built, there was as a lot of towns had creameries where they took the milk and took the cream off. And for the period when that creamery was operating, the town was divided. If you worked at the mill, you went to the Sibley store. If you worked at the creamery, you went to Bill Nye's store. And apparently you couldn't, intermingle.
So what was where you're there was a store?
It's right on, it's just next to the.
What was that called?
Well, it was originally the Prey store.
Yeah, there was actually a fourth store, which kind of fell out of the time frame I was trying to concentrate on. It was later, but another one of our attendees.
That's for another story.
Yes, we will get to that sometime. But their Praise store was basically the next building up on that side of 14. Was a later store, which has a lot of its own history, including North Montpelier's own printing press. So we'll get to that sometime. Again, for anyone who doesn't know, unfortunately, this is the current view of that store. But
Are they gonna let it fall down?
I hope not. That's one I kind of tried to fix. This is the original image. So it was a pretty nice store. This is the 1870s, so probably 25 years after it was built, but was kept in very good shape. The one reason I included this is you can see to the left over the doorway, maybe you can't see, but it's a lot clearer than it was, is W. Nye.
So that's from a stereoscope picture, right?
Yes.
Stereoscope,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
So there was a Nye brand melodeon that supposedly was manufactured in.
Yep. Again, I didn't quite get to that, but yes. So the Nye family, there. I don't know if you've noticed, there were a number of different houses that were Nyes, and yes, at the site of that fourth store, Praise store, where Susan McKinney lives, on that site, at this time frame, before it was a store, there was a different building, and yes, the two sons of Bill Nye went into the music instrument business. And they, for about 40 years, much tapered off at the end, but they did produce, I think, in some years, 30 or 40 instruments. And they were not ones that I just touched something, sorry. I'm getting maybe
It was
an ad.
about 9.
Yeah, Seraphones, I know was one thing, I don't really know what that is.
Here.
Yes, and that's what I was gonna say. I do know that the right here at the church is an existing Nye organ. That is the only one. Actually, there is one or two others that still exist. It's the only one that I know of in the area. I would love to see that at some point. But yeah, they did that basically full-time for probably 25 years, and then for the remainder of both their lives, they fixed instruments, and I believe made some, at a much different pace. I think you probably still could get one. So yeah, that was the next building over. Okay, so again, for the time period, that was what I was gonna do on stores. So now kind of going back a little bit to roads, but one of my favorite topics, covered bridges. So here's a current view, again, for anyone who doesn't know, that's 14 going out of the village. We're on the bridge that goes over the pond. No, this is further north. Next bridge, yeah.
Was that a covered one?
Okay, my order is off a little bit, so bear with me. We're gonna go back to another view of the store. So this was I believe the person who ran it after the Nye family was out of the picture. It was Margaret Foster, and she ran it for 20 to 25 years. Again, she was.
I remember that.
Do you? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember her.
Okay. Yeah. What? So, I think that was like when would that be? The 50s? I think she was from like the
40s.
40s. Okay. Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that I guess, okay, so I have seen a version of this where the, must be a little different year, where the gas pumps were down on the road, and like, how did that all fit? And, one of the big things is the road was a lot narrower. But I just noticed in here that the gas pumps are actually on the porch.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. And just, that's the original, so I highlighted it a little bit. Okay, so, I think somebody had mentioned earlier the blacksmith shop. So that's, circled there, so on the other side of the bridge. I think, okay. So again, to bear with the order a little bit here, we're gonna go back to the covered bridge.
Yes, where's that one?
Right next to Lisa's house.
Yeah, so that's the, over the pond, so, looking north, yeah. So that, the house you see in the distance, that is between 14 and the pond, and that is still there. And if anybody's interested, I have a bunch of different images of this, that I could show somebody at some time, but,
It's like a one-lane bridge.
oh yeah, look at it.
It's in 14.
Which,
Yeah, that's 14, so Lisa's is right, you're basically probably standing in Lisa's, lawn to
Okay.
take that picture,
okay, got it.
looking further.
I think I've seen it.
Laura's old
Can't
house.
see Laura's.
So
Yeah, Laura's house is either not there or out of sight
It's
to the,
not there, that's Barbara and Jerry Smith's house.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
So North Montpelier Pond is all up that
Both
way.
sides, both sides.
both,
And then the water flows underneath
yeah,
and forms the immediate mill pond before, upstream of the dam. And the woolen mill's down here is how I'm seeing it.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm looking north, and that building's still there, I hear you saying that, for that too.
And again, sorry about the order, but we're gonna go back to blacksmith shop. So that's, I am not 100% certain, although, maybe, something else is, that is the actual original building. It may be or it may not be. If it is, it's very different from older pictures that I've seen, but it's kinda in the right place, so it might be. But anyway, that's the location, if not the building.
And I was imagining that the working part of it was out back, around out the back side of it, maybe?
We'll get to a picture
Okay.
that might answer that question. Again, back to, unfortunately for a second, covered bridge. That's a future covered bridge picture, but in the meantime, I think this next one is probably my favorite old image of North Montpelier. It's one I found, I've never seen it anywhere else, I own it. So that is looking at the blacksmith shop, looking north. 14 is to your left. In the far distance, right in the middle, you can kind of see what is the river bend. And so there's a number of things that really interest me. On the very left, you're seeing the only image I've ever seen of a bridge like that. That is the bridge over the Kingsbury, below the dam, i.e. what was the Singing Bridge. I cannot tell whether that is a steel bridge or an open wood truss bridge. I did zoom in on it and it looked to be wooden. But it is, see, like I said, the only picture I've ever seen like that. The other thing I like about this is, so right in the middle, you're seeing a derrick. With the post with the arm, I believe that was used for the sawmill. Because I have another picture, which I didn't include in this, but where they are low, there you can see 14 is taken basically from 14, and there's a wagon in 14, and they're rolling logs off the wagon down the slope to go to the sawmill. So again, the sawmill is kind of probably taken, we're probably standing at the sawmill. The sawmill was on this side of the river. So they're probably, that's the only thing I can assume that derrick was for. I mean, I don't think it would have been for the blacksmith shop. I think it had to have been for moving logs.
Where's the river? I don't see where the river is.
So the river is in the middle of the picture. At the bottom, there's a whole bunch of like brush.
Right. No.
I believe the river is on the other side of that, based on where the bridge is. You can't see the river, unfortunately, in that picture. But it's got to be somewhere between that brush and you also, I'm not sure if you can tell, but right in here, there are a number of guys, and it appears that they are building a granite retaining wall. I have zoomed in on that, and it appears that's what they're doing. And my guess is that that was in preparation of some sort of building. I mean, I don't know when so again, anyone who's not familiar, right now, right in this area, there's a big blue apartment building.
Yeah.
I don't know when that appeared. I obviously don't think here when they were still using it for the sawmill, but it's just an interesting picture to me of how much is going on. And this is the blacksmith shop, the postcard that this is.
There's a plug-in over there.
So they must have built that up, because there's a slope there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
those buildings are flat and then it goes down behind them.
Yeah,
now.
yeah, they must have built in this whole area in here quite a bit to level it out.
Hey Nathan?
Yep.
I propose that derrick is a temporary installation to move the granite blocks to build the foundation if the sawmill is on this side of things.
That makes a lot more sense.
Just
I think that's most likely correct. Yeah.
What did he say?
He just said he thought it was more likely that derrick was a temporary thing for moving those granite blocks
Yeah.
that they're building, and I just said that makes a lot more sense than what I had proposed. I guess part of it is, wrapping my head around a derrick like that being temporary, but but I mean, they did definitely do that all the time. So
Nathan, what's fun here is like we're all making our history as we talk. Like I don't know what I'm talking about. and you know what you're talking about. But we're kind of what's fact, what's fiction,
Yeah. All right, now we're going to go back to covered bridges in order. So this, so let me just close your eyes for a minute because I'm going to go quick. But so here's that picture right now. Again, this is looking south. This, for those that know, this is looking at Lisa Chris's house. You've got the riverbend kind of dead right down the road, just to the left. You're looking at the kind of back of the riverbend, just looking back towards the mill. So you're looking again back, so you can see the interesting thing to me, right straight through the bridge is what was the riverbend. This is the Riverbend's barn, very distinctive with a mansard roof. You can see exactly the same back of Lisa's house. Now, the thing I want to know is, what is all this? There are huge amount. This is actually over the water. You know, that's fully on piers.
Well, Lisa said that she
I
grew
was
up.
hoping she might be here.
Yeah, no, she's on her way to Germany at this
Oh,
point,
well,
tomorrow morning, so.
that sounds like a,
Yeah, but anyway, that barn that you can see right there, that was there when she was growing up. And the water, it was not. So the water in the pond has risen, has widened.
higher.
Much
Yeah,
higher than it was.
okay. But that's, again, I had never seen all of that there. I'm not really sure what that was out over the water.
Do you think it's a boathouse?
Oh, that would make sense.
Maybe it was taken after a flood.
Yeah, that could be.
Well, unless it's a workshop and you have something to dispose of by dropping it through some crates in the floor.
So this, one thing I speculated about, I mean, maybe if it's hard to tell like the depth here. One thought I had wondered was whether this was some building associated with that music instrument manufacturing, because you know that was before Susan's house was built. It was on that site, you know, a couple down from here, so it's kind of hard to tell the depth. You can see the church here, but I wondered if that was, because I have no idea what that original, you know, that building before the store was, how big it was. I don't know anything about it. I just speculated whether that was something to do with that.
Nathan, the mansard roof building was the left, is that where I used to dance?
No, that was the next building over. So this is what was the Riverbend.
Where were the dance floor?
Right here, yeah, right. I assume he danced in the dance hall, right? Yeah. That's just out of sight. So this is and always was a barn for this house, which for a long time was the Riverbend store. But yeah, that was always just a barn. But it is very distinctive.
What would the roads be? Is one going?
This I believe. I mean, this is, as best I can tell, is the drive to that house that I unfortunately don't know who lives there, but
That's the Smiths.
the house that's between 14 and the pond. I mean, that's the only thing it can be.
That's the Smiths' house.
Smiths, okay.
Jerry Smith's house.
Okay.
Across from our other house.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that kind of threw me at first, but the fact that everything else fits means it just has to be a driveway, I guess. And then we're gonna just sneak back to an overall shot. Again.
Nathan, just so you know, it's 8:45.
Okay,
And
yeah,
so maybe
okay,
if
well,
we're
I was
getting
saying,
near the end.
yeah.
No, thanks.
Yeah. We can-
This is great, but, you know.
Yeah, you know, I know. So again, just here you can see that second dam I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
That lower dam, that's what powered the sawmill and the grist mill. This may be that same bridge. I mean, there's definitely an open truss thing there. This would be pre-1909 because this is the old mill. But after 1881, because that's the Sibley Mansion. That's the store, the blacksmith shop. I assume some people remember this building. I don't, but I found the pictures where that was there fairly late. Does anybody remember that? It's a parking lot now.
I don't remember it.
Don't remember it? No. Okay. Let's just lightened a little bit more to see a little bit more.
The wall between Susan and Laura's Swan's one.
What's that?
Oh, yeah. There was a wall, there's a big retaining wall. It's not there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So-
yeah, that's just the edge of my property, but yeah, it doesn't have to say.
It's like such a big city. Kinds of bumps there.
So what
It
year,
was a
what
pretty
year is that
quiet
photo
community.
made?
It would be between 1881 and 1909.
So is the woolen mill using the water power at that point? Or would they have been electric?
So the first thing in this area at all, like say beyond East Montpelier Village, to get power was that mill. That was 1903. So maybe it's right around that time, plus or minus, whether it actually was or not, but not very far from it probably. Because the new mill, definitely was running on electricity, not from the dam. Again, threw this in for some Calais people. This is everything that identifies it says North Montpelier, and I'm like, oh, where is that in North Montpelier? Any guesses?
Over?
Cape Cod?
No. That's the same bridge.
You said
Uh,
Calais?
Is it by a wall?
It's Max Gray. Max Gray. And like I said, everything says North Montpelier, but I mean, that's definitely, I think it might have been, so someone had mentioned Carnes earlier. I think this might have said it was the Carnes Bridge. Where was Carnes?
Where you turn and go up to the east.
Gail,
Calais
you
Elementary School.
recognize that?
Right on the corner.
Max Gray,
Pardon?
Max Gray Road.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, I heard somebody say it was Carn School.
Was where?
Corn School.
Right, where you-
Lightning Bridge Road.
Oh, okay, that one, yeah, okay, yeah.
But that makes sense.
Oh,
that
okay,
lot
this
line.
is on, I'm
Max
sorry.
Gray.
Where is this now?
Max Gray Road.
Yes.
That-
Yeah, the south end of the pond, the tail of.
Yeah,
No, it was,
North End, yeah.
like if you from Route 14, you turn right,
Yeah.
it was right down.
Yeah.
Right down.
Yeah.
Down the road, yeah.
Yeah.
It is, a narrow bridge there now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I
Much the same
remember
except
that,
for-
yeah.
The information on this said that it was
It's still covered.
displaced by a ice jam
No.
in 1959 and was somewhere down the stream, but salvageable, but they couldn't raise the money to go save it. That was what the newspaper article said.
Yeah, there's some people and a dog on the other side of the bridge, looks like it beyond the.
Oh, are there?
Yeah, like 2 people and a dog.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
All right, and there's one more I wanted to make sure I got to, because this, again, the challenging assumptions, and, what you're used to isn't always what it really, has been all along. Wait, where's my picture go? Wait a minute. That picture really intrigues me. Does it you, Laura? Does that picture intrigue you?
Is that your house?
No, that's the Smith's house.
Oh.
Yeah, but look at where your house should be.
Yeah, it's not there, is it? Well, our house, according to George Clough, was built in 1909.
Okay. So, but did you know there was a big barn right where your house was? Before your house was there?
Back, I know, there was a barn.
Yeah.
And the story is it was put into the pond.
Yeah.
And it fell down.
But I think that's basically right where your house is, isn't it? I don't think it was. Anyway, I thought that was a very interesting picture. I'd never seen a barn there before.
Well, it looks like there's not room for a house. if that's
Yeah, yeah.
Where's
That-
Route 14 in that picture?
So,
Where is it?
right there, so that's the covered bridge.
Oh, I see.
So Laura's house is, future house is somewhere over in here.
But that's the bridge, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the same bridge, yep.
The house is right across from the Smith's house, but there was a barn behind our house supposedly. Well, maybe it was in front.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it looks pretty much where your house is. But I thought your house was, I thought your house was later. You can see somebody sitting on the stone wall right there.
That's the road.
Yeah, the road, but he's just,
It's just sitting there.
yeah,
And what's that building on the right, on the water?
That's a barn. That's a barn.
yeah.
It's just a regular barn, okay.
I mean, do you remember that, Laura? I wanna say I remember that
I
part being
sort of
there.
think I do.
Yeah.
Who are the previous owners? I can't even think right now. No, before the Smiths. Remember, Nathan?
I don't.
Andy?
No?
Anybody?
And these are just a couple of aerials from 1956 that again show a lot of, there's the church. It's hard to see, but that is the walkway over the top. Mills here.
Before the draft.
Yes, before the giraffe. Boarding house here. And again, it's hard to see, but you can start to see some of all the buildings that were there. Anyone who knows Jessica Mosley lived in, in my memory, there's been one of these little workman's houses here. There's 3 here. There were originally 4 or 5.
Where's the big fancy where Jackie lives?
Oh,
Yeah, it's kind of again hidden over
behind
here.
the trees, okay.
Yeah.
Such a development.
Yeah.
Laura's house here.
Yeah,
Riverbank. And then you might see a little bit better in this one from the other way. Selena's house here, the Rich Mansion, Sibley Mansion, the mill, boarding house.
So Janet's house hadn't
You,
been built
you
yet?
can see a lot more when these are zoomed in. Just wanted to try to show the overall.
Janet's house is the white one.
And I'm sorry, Susan, do you know who owns this now? I can't remember the name.
no.
So this is again right in the middle of the village. Laura's house, yeah. Lisa's.
Chris is the first name, I don't know his
Yeah.
last name.
So you're a little south of that covered bridge.
It's just looking so different.
Basically, the house, I mean, really looks very similar, doesn't it? I mean, the shape anyway. This isn't here, but it's a big 2-story. This is the
Yeah,
porch
that's
has
part of
been.
it, but it's in such terrible shape now.
Was that Alan Soul's house?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that
that's
was-
what to say. That's the name that I know.
Alan Soul,
Yeah.
in back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I think this may be the last one. Just zoomed in on this. This is somewhat for Susan. So this is the Prey store, that 4th store that I said I really wasn't going to talk about. But again, I hadn't seen this. This was a big open area that was used, obviously for storage. I think it's also where for Paul Kate, where the driftwood printing press.
Driftwind?
Yeah, I'm sorry, driftwind. Printing operation was operated out of. The printing press was actually in this area when Walter Coates owned it after the Praise.
I thought that was the only place that it was, but it actually had, the press itself was inside what I call the tool room, was actually in the house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so
Okay.
we used this, because it would have been kind of hard to do it in the winter.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was never, yeah.
And that was the sixties and seventies?
No, that was like
This was early,
20s, 30s.
Earlier?
That the, yeah.
early
Um,
20th century.
So I just like this because you could actually read the meal and flour and feeds. I also have a picture where there's a wagon, half in and half out here.
Yeah, that house next door is so pretty.
So I do just want to definitely thank, especially the Vermont Historical Society. Probably at least half of the images came from them. And then Selena.
Where did I get the, how could I get credit for that?
Well,
My picture?
yeah,
Our
a number of
house?
those pictures are yours.
Oh, I see, that's right.
Yeah.
The rich
So,
house.
thank you very much. Sorry to keep you
Well,
up.
thank you, everybody. If you are able and you pull up chairs, they go on a rack just in the hallway here. Any little helping hands are welcome. Books for sale, film tickets for sale, and we know it's late, but it's quite a tour.
It's lapsed right now. I have, so in the winter, I subscribe, I do a 6 month to Ancestry and newspapers because if you do it year round, I would sit there and listen to weather's nice and it's
Some of the chairs.
I usually start